All right, from the Rotary Club of Millbrae with the classification of real estate. My name is Phil Petro, and I've been a Rotarian for about a year and a half now. I first would like to thank you all so very much for joining our virtual event today, Envisioning a New Normal in Business Leadership and Innovation. Before we begin, I would like to go over a few items with everyone so that we can maximize your experience today. As this is a panel discussion, we recommend making sure that you have your Zoom set to speaker view so that our speakers will always be front and center on your screen. You can do this on your computer by clicking on the top right of your screen to toggle between speaker and gallery view. For those of you joining us on your mobile device, you can swipe left or right on your screen to toggle between each view as well. All attendees will be muted while our panelists are speaking. At the end of the discussion, if you have a question for our panelists, we ask that you use the chat box to privately message our co-host, Kathy Picard, and we'll do our best to get you a question as time allows. This discussion will be recorded and available to view after the event. After our discussion, we will have all attendees split into breakout rooms so that we can connect, network with one another, and enjoy fellowship. With that, I would like to pass it off to our co-host, Rob Holyoke.
Thank you, Philip, and welcome everyone. I'm Rob Holyoke, a member of the Rotary Means Business and also the Rotary Club of Menlo Park with a classification of commercial architect. We welcome you to our business leadership and innovation panel discussion, which will follow this agenda with our panel discussion starting at 10:05, followed by questions and answers and networking breakout sessions. Today's event is hosted by the Rotary Means Business Fellowship of Rotary District 5150. Our district includes 44 individual Rotary clubs with nearly 1,800 Rotarians in Marin, San Francisco, and San Mateo counties. Rotary is a worldwide network of business leaders who translate their passions into relevant social causes to change lives and communities. Rotary Club members are inspired individuals who volunteer to work locally, regionally, and internationally to combat hunger, improve health and sanitation, provide education and job training, promote peace, and eradicate polio, all under the Rotary motto, service above self. Rotarians test everything we think, say, or do against this four-way test. Is it truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? Now we'd like to share a video with you that describes a bit more about Rotary and our community service mission.
Possibilities are all around us. Everywhere we look, we see opportunity. We see potential in unexpected places. And when we share our knowledge, vision, and connections, we turn great ideas into action. In communities all around the world that we call home. Like transforming an old bus to feed hungry children, or providing life-saving equipment to those who need it most. From fighting disease to rebuilding schools, together, we can make real change happen. We're Rotary. We are people of action. Get involved today at Rotary.org.
And welcome back. We hope the discussions on these 6 topics related to business leadership and innovation will inspire you. I'm very pleased to introduce our moderator, Sue Roca. Sue has just completed her term as District Governor for Rotary District 5150 and has been instrumental in inspiring and elevating the Rotary Means Business Fellowship Program. Sue is an attorney currently working at a San Francisco-based commercial insurance company managing litigation. A former partner in a major local law firm, Sue has served in-house as part of a general counsel's team and also owned her own company, where she was responsible for all aspects of the business, including financial management, sales, marketing, and leveraging social media. Sue's 35-year career informs her about how an organization's culture impacts the opportunities afforded to their employees. For Sue, these opportunities included becoming one of 20 female partners in a 200-person law firm at a time when the idea of women mentors had not surfaced and female lawyers were not allowed to wear pants to work. How things have changed during our lifetime, Sue, but we still have a long way to go. Sue recognizes that education is the transformative agent to ensure opportunity and develop future leaders from diverse backgrounds to empower their career success. Sue's strong desire to help those who want to improve themselves has resulted in her teaching at several colleges, community colleges, and law schools, including Golden Gate and Hastings Law. As you can see, Sue has experienced and has personally helped to accelerate the cultural and business changes represented by our themes for this event. Now, please join me in welcoming Sue Roca.
Thank you, Rob, for that warm introduction. I'm very honored to be the moderator today for this panel. Let me first just start out and acknowledge and thank District Governor Mary Bates for being with us today, and also all the Rotarians and the guests who are with us, and of course the panelists. Before I introduce the panelists to you, let me just remind you that you may ask questions and direct them to a particular panelist by sending in the chat room just a chat to Kathy Picard. And at the conclusion of our formal panel, we'll have a question and answer period, and we hope to get to all the questions. So today we're very fortunate to have 4 visionary leaders with us. I'm going to introduce each one of them to you. First, Dr. Elizabeth Velardo. Dr. Velardo is the CEO of Foundation Sutter Health Bay Area. She's served on the boards of the Palo Alto Foundation Medical Group, Sutter Health, and Palo Alto Medical Foundation, where she was the first female CEO in its 90-year history. As a doctor of internal medicine, Dr. Velardo has been named a top doc by San Francisco Magazine 4 times and received the Excellence in Healthcare Award from Becker's Healthcare, which is the go-to source for the most critical issues in American healthcare. Becker's also named her as one of the 130 women to know in healthcare, and the San Francisco Business Times likewise recognized Dr. Velardo for her strong leadership skills with his Women of Influence Award. Dr. Velardo also has community service in her heart, having served on several nonprofit boards, including Youth Outside, Women's Achievement Network and Development Alliance, Healthier Kids, and the Y Silicon Valley, by which she was awarded YMCA's Distinguished Volunteer Award. Dr. Velardo earned her medical degree from UCSF and MBA from Pepperdine University. She is known for her leadership stemming from her success in combining medical training and business acumen with an ability to connect with people. Please join me in welcoming Liz Velardo. Our next panelist is Dow Wilson. Mr. Wilson is president and CEO of Variant Medical Systems, a $3.5 billion revenue global company in oncology equipment and services. Prior to Variant, Mr. Wilson held executive leadership positions in General Electric as CEO of GE Healthcare Information Technologies and as general manager for several of GE's imaging businesses worldwide. Recognized for his global leadership in business, Mr. Wilson was named as a founding member of President Obama's Advisory Council on Doing Business in Africa and currently serves as the chair for the USA Brazil CEO Forum. As a board member for Saba, which is a cloud-based talent management solution used by leading organizations worldwide, Mr. Wilson served as lead independent director, guiding Saba through a CEO leadership transition. He also currently serves as an outside director on the Agilent board. A graduate of Brigham Young University, Mr. Wilson holds an MBA from the Amos Tuck School of Business at Dartmouth. Like Dr. Velardo, the spirit of service and improving others' lives is what excites Dow Wilson. We are fortunate to have him with us today to share his insights and global experience. Please join me in welcoming Dow Wilson.
Morning, everybody.
Chris Pickett is CEO of Digilens, a company on a mission to enable the next generation of waveguide-based augmented reality displays that has wide-ranging global applications. He also served as CEO or business lead for 4 separate startup companies, each focused on innovating and licensing technology and intellectual property related to semiconductors, software, image sensors, or optics. Mr. Pickett has not only developed and implemented business plans for these startups, but also successfully accelerated margin and revenue growth to elevate company valuations. Ultimately, he took 3 of these startups to successful exits. Mr. Pickett holds a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering from California Polytechnic State University and a law degree from the University of San Francisco, also my alma mater, allowing him to connect technology, licensing, intellectual property development, and business strategy with his unique ability to translate vision into world-class execution. You know that Mr. Pickett's skill in creativity and business innovation and collaboration will inspire the meeting.
Yes.
Please
But
join
you
me.
can come in, I'm not on camera.
Okay.
Please join me in welcoming Chris Pickett.
Nice to be here.
Our fourth panelist is Denise Shepard. Ms. Shepard is Managing Director at Deloitte Consulting, where she leads strategic talent management. In her work, Ms. Shepard has redesigned and deployed a performance management program for Deloitte's 50,000 plus global professionals. Ms. Shepard is passionate about enriching individual career growth and leadership opportunities internally and leading her clients through complex change efforts to get the best out of their global talent resources. She has also been recognized for her significant contributions as a member of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, Inc. Ms. Shepard likewise has shown her passion for service, serving several years as a member of the Northern California Youth Leadership Board. A graduate of Stanford University, Ms. Shepard also holds a master's degree from the Goldman School of Public Policy at UC Berkeley. She is known as a leader in performance management and for her unsurpassed people skills, and we look forward to hearing from her today. Please join me in welcoming Denise Shepard.
Thank you for having me.
So let's get started with our first topic, which we're going to turn to, is enhancing company culture and mission. And again, I want to welcome and thank all the panelists for joining us today. And I will note that we originally planned this for March 14th, when we were all going to be able to meet together. And I thank the 4 of you for being able to join us today for our virtual session. So thank you so much. So again, turning to our first topic, and this is one that I'd like to pose to each one of you, because I think it will kind of set the tone and also inform the audience about what about your companies. So many people believe that the foundation of every company is its mission. So that's a good place for us to start today. So again, I'm going to start with Dow and ask, what is your company's mission?
Thank you, Sue. Our company, we're in the business of delivering cancer therapy. We are the world leader in radiation therapy, and we have a number of other cancer therapies that we do. You know, our vision's pretty simple. One of the things that makes it fun is it empowers a very purpose-led company. So our vision is a world without the fear of cancer.
Mm-hmm. And let me turn to Denise, who's in a bit of a different field. So what is the mission of your company?
Sure. So Deloitte is a professional services organization. And so our mission is about making an impact that matters. So we help our clients most effectively execute their mission, but we're doing that in a way that really is designed to drive results, not just go through the motions. We also believe in making an impact that matters in our communities through investment in direct community service, but also in significant investment in using our knowledge and capabilities with pro bono work. The second component I would say is having a culture of courage as part of our mission, really having the difficult conversations, whether it's with your teams, your leaders, or your clients, doing the right thing and not the easy thing. And so those are really two of the things that attracted me to and keep me at Deloitte.
Thank you. And Chris.
Hi, everybody. So DigiLens is a startup that develops and enables transparent displays for augmented reality. So what that means is, as you look through our display, the digital information looks projected out at distance and in context with the world around you. So you see the world when you see the digital information. So our information, or our mission, is really to enable a new human-machine interface through augmenting the world with that digital layer. We think it gives the people, or will give the people, a more immersive way to interact with their data while still being connected to the world, as opposed to being distracted.
And Liz.
Had to figure out how to unmute, sorry. So first of all, thanks so much for having me. This is really great. I was a little nervous about doing Zoom meetings when you first asked, but we've all gotten used to it now, and it turns out it works fairly well. So thank you so much. I'm really honored to be here among these people. So I work for Sutter Health, and we're a large healthcare organization. We have physicians and hospitals and all the pieces of a healthcare system. And we enhance the well-being of the people in the communities we serve through a not-for-profit commitment to compassion and excellence in healthcare services. So our vision, Sutter Health leads the transformation of healthcare to achieve the highest levels of quality, access, and affordability. So we're really looking for an experience that's both safe, personal, affordable, and accessible. You need all those things for people to see it. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So, as a follow-up, each of you is a CEO, and we talk about company culture and the values of a company. So let me pose this question to you, Liz, which is that employees tend to emulate the values of a CEO. So of course, it's important for the CEO to communicate those values and for them to be understood. So how do you express your values as a CEO and ensure that these values are going to be shared and understood and embraced by your employees?
So in a very large organization, so I'm a CEO among CEOs, we really have to have very specific shared values, and we have to explain through actions how we see those values occur. So our values are community, to work and to understand the diverse needs of our communities, excellence and quality, that speaks for itself, excellence in quality care, innovation, so whether it's new therapies or a new way of checking a patient in, we look for innovation. We, of course, want to be affordable. It doesn't do us any good to be great if people can't come see us. Teamwork, we recognize the power of the team, really the system, compassion and caring, and then honesty and integrity. And we really understand that people have experiences which inform their beliefs, which then inform their actions, and that gives you an outcome. So what we try to do is take this experience and we say, gosh, Susan, when you helped your partner at the front desk, that really demonstrated teamwork to me, and I'd like to see that. So we try to incorporate not only the values, the word values, but help all of our employees down to the front line understand how that value translates and what behaviors we see translate that value, so that they can really embrace them and say, oh, okay, this is really important for our organization.
And so, Dow, being in I'll say a bit of a different industry. Well, I suppose it's a similar industry, but different.
Liz is a great customer. Thank you, Liz.
Yeah.
Quality and excellence.
Right.
Our
But
experience with your company informs our belief.
but it's like you come at it different ways. So the same question posed to you, Dow, in terms of the values of CEO and
Yeah, I think values are things that don't change in time. And, whereas culture can change in time and needs to change in time. And frankly, we're in a time where culture might have to adapt faster than it ever has. But, for us, values are things like customers first, innovation. We have a phrase that has been in our company for 70 years, partners for life. We're in a cancer business. We're forming partnership with care teams like Sutter and others in our community to deliver the best cancer care in the world. And then doing well by doing the right thing. Something that Denise talked about at Deloitte. That's also very much. We see these four values as things that won't change in time. For us to be successful, they have to be part of our mix. But culture can change in time, so we have four value statements, and we have 5 cultural beliefs: beat cancer, count on me, act as one, inspire each other, and now what's the 5th? Of course, engage now. So we have 5 cultural beliefs that can change in time, as we see the needs of our company and the needs of our culture changing. So for example, our first cultural belief is we want everybody in the company to have a passion about beating cancer. So that's our first cultural belief, is let's go beat cancer. I mean, what a great thing to rally around. And whether you're a finance clerk or our chief medical officer, clearly one knows a lot more about beating cancer than the other, but we want everybody in the company to have that passion about that. Now, having said that, we have a new innovation going on that could turn out to be very, very important in beating ventricular tachycardia and atrial fibrillation. So that's a cultural belief that might have to adapt. We're seeing lots of things in our community right now change around. I think it's a very positive thing, and it's been a change in the last several decades, but you're seeing it accelerate right now with Black Lives Matter and the big push to diversity and inclusion. And I think our organization has been very good on these attributes, but we're having a serious reflection around how do we accelerate those items. So anyway, it's just a long way of saying, for us, we've got some things that are very important to us about who we are, wherever we are in the world, whatever our background, whatever our color, religion, race, etc. There's some things that are really important to us about who we are in the long term. And then there's some things that we're trying to do around our culture, that are adaptable and change. And we're having some conversation now around, hey, do we need to add another statement? Do we need to, from an external survey point of view, we get very good points on diversity and inclusion, and I think we're a world-class organization that way. But like everybody, we're asking the question: are we doing enough? And and how do we make it safer in our company and in the customers we serve?
So that actually brings us to our, thank you, Deb. That brings us on to kind of our next, really relates to our next topic, and you kind of hit upon it, which is encouraging collaboration and innovation. And Chris, let me turn to you for this question. And it's it's been said that a great leader will inspire and motivate their team members to develop, to innovate, to collaborate. And so how is the current pandemic kind of impacted, I suppose, workforce innovations, if it has in fact impacted?
I think everybody's been impacted, right? One way or another. I think we all have gone down from a commute of 20 minutes to a couple hours to 0 while we go from one Zoom meeting to the next, right? So things have changed for my company in a variety of different ways. The first thing was, while we were in shelter in place, it was important to get ready for when we came back to work, because people have to feel safe. It's not necessarily a workplace innovation to keep people safe, but it is super important. It gives people confidence. And I think people need confidence as they come to work, spend more time at work typically than they spend at home. So the types of things that we did was we reconfigured the buildings that we have. We have multiple shifts coming into our lab so that people can be socially spaced. We're spacing out the desks. We have some of people's desks in the lunchrooms now, right? As you know, you can't really congregate in the lunchrooms anymore because you need to socially space. So people are sitting apart from each other. We've got plastic dividers between desks. We've got auto opening doors and auto bathroom fixtures, mandatory masks, hand sanitizer everywhere. But just fundamentally physical things and kind of mental things to keep people safe and give them confidence while they're at work. We've also gone, even while we're in shelter in place, to way more video interactions. During shelter in place for sure, we're Zooming or Skyping or teaming with each other, with our customers. Strangely, the business on a business development and design perspective has sped up because of shelter in place. Because our customers were not thinking day to day anymore, they were thinking longer term. And we were able to link into that. So even now, when we're back in the buildings, we don't have a lot of people going to meeting rooms. They meet over Microsoft Teams or Zoom. And it's actually a really effective way of communicating. You can get just call somebody up like you would just walk by their desk. You can have a meaningful conversation. You can share documents. It's a pretty interesting way of running the business. The last thing that we've done, we have a licensing business, and we set up manufacturing lines in Asia and in Europe for our licensees to use our technology to make the transparent displays. And it's really hard to go to those places to set up those lines right now, right? How do you do it? So we've had to develop a whole new set of protocols, and we're using augmented reality and iPads and glasses and things like that to show the people there how to set the equipment up. We can send it to them, and we're having them set it up themselves now. And it's fascinating to see the team kind of come together around that, and to see the customers come together around it as well. So those are the things that we do.
Yeah, a lot to think about, and to plan for. You can't plan for the moment. You have to really plan out. And as you say, being able to still deal with the employees and keep them going, and all provide them enough support. And actually, you also make the point about clients, dealing with your clients. One of the just want to stay with you here, Chris, on your experience with both mature companies and startups, and what if any do you see are the biggest differences in those situations? Is there any difference in terms of I suppose the employees, the team?
I think there are huge differences. I think startups are all about doing improbable things, doing things that larger companies can't do or won't do because they're weighed down by historical businesses. And so you kind of shed that. You get small teams of people together that are amazingly focused on solving more limited sets of solutions. And that sounds simple, but when you have a historical business and you're making all your money out of a particular thing, it's very difficult to do the next thing while you're doing the main thing. And that's why startups are successful. They split off and they do one thing really well. And so you need focus, you need subject matter experts, small teams that ultimately take ownership. And ownership it's important in any business, but in a startup, if somebody comes in because it's a small team and they show ownership over an area, they can expand their scope really easily and become more prominent in that business just by showing ownership. And so they tend to be respected by their peers, and they tend to gravitate or move up in the organization quickly by doing that. So those are, I think, the main differences that I see in startups and mature companies.
So on the same topic, sort of sticking with this topic, and Dow, because of your global experience, you're probably used to dealing with, I'll say, distinct, working styles or diverse perspectives that may be driven to some extent by people being from other countries. So how does your company really harness, all those different working styles and diverse perspectives in order to ensure that there will be success? If there is, in fact, any difference working locally. Maybe there isn't.
First of all, it's hard, so acknowledge that. Second, maybe with an anecdote here, I spent 6 years living and working in France, and then 2 years when I was younger. I'd spent 2 years as a kid in France. Anyway, the short version is the French are very different from Americans, and in a lot of ways, those are two cultures that are very different. But I didn't really appreciate it in the work context until I saw my kids going through school. And in the French education system, it turns out, what's the first thing we do in the first grade or kindergarten in the US? We push the desks together, right? It's a very collaborative team based education system. We have sports. There's no sports in the French school system. You do all of your sports in clubs outside of the education system. There's no scouts. There's no Girl Scouts, or pick your thing. It's very separate and not integrated into the education system. Well, in the French education system, the person who gets the A is the person who wins the debate. Doesn't mean they got the right answer. All they have to do is win the debate. So we're doing this product design, and I'm working with a bunch of French colleagues, and guess what? All that matters to them is whether their answer is the one that we choose. They're not really interested in doing it. Whereas Americans, we're the opposite. We're cowboys, and so we're, westward movement, entrepreneurs from Silicon Valley, let's rock and roll. And, and we don't write down a spec, we innovate and get to an answer and then eventually perfect it in time. Anyway, just a kind of an anecdotal example to illustrate how different, in this particular case, global culture can have. And you just have to talk about it, because it turns out if you can harness the French desire to get, to have the perfect concept, with the American ability to, okay, can we get it to market, and will it work, and will a whole bunch of people buy it? If we can actually put those together, we'll get something that neither culture can do. So you really have to kind of just talk about differences, talk about what's important, stay focused on what you're trying to deliver, and have a lot of conversation around what well, what is the end result got to be? And you know, and if you get that, you got something really special.
Okay. Very interesting perspective, your global perspective, and also having lived in another country for a period of time. So this is a good segue into individual career growth and leadership innovation. And research shows that I suppose employees, really critical concern for employees is career growth. And they do look at they look at the CEO, they look at others, for mentoring. And I'm going to pose this question to Denise. And with your success at Deloitte, what really, I suppose, helped you to get where you are? And what advice would you give to somebody who is really wants to get off on a similar career path? I suppose the career path is to be a CEO. Everyone wants to be a CEO, but just in terms of what helped you to get to where you are?
Sure. I'd say it's a couple of different things. One is willingness to adapt and evolve. So if you think about career path as being a thing, right? My career path has been meandering. I've had probably 4 different careers in my life, and I'm not embarrassed to say I'm in my 40s. And I started out of college wanting to be an attorney. I've always wanted to be an attorney. I worked for law firms for 2 years and discovered that was not at all what I wanted to do. And so moving on from that, I went and worked in corporate affairs for a while, thought that was interesting, got that sort of corporate knowledge. And then I went back to school. I went back to school, got my Master of Public Policy, ended up doing human capital consulting at Deloitte for several years, and learned from that and took all of that into my current role leading talent strategy for our largest practice. So it's not by any means a linear path, and it shouldn't be. You should be willing to keep trying different things. And I think you eventually kind of sometimes stumble on the thing that you really love and want to do. The second thing I would add is mentorship. And I'm sure that the entire panel would concur that we've all had mentors who have helped us along the way. I can think of a couple off the top of my head right now where I was in a career kind of a place where I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and having the ability to reach out to folks who I admired and trusted, who could give me good advice, who could frankly help me navigate. That was one of the most critical things that led to my success. And so I think it's really important to find those people who are your mentors, whether that means they tell you the tough thing, or whether that means they're your advocates and really pushing for you to move forward. Those would be mine.
And so Liz, again, you're in a little different field. So what helped you to get to where you are, and what advice? I realize, so you come from it having as a medical doctor, that was your start, and here you are really in the business world. So what helped you to get to where you are?
Well, I had sort of a meandering pathway. Actually, I was a nurse, and then I became a doctor, and then I sort of did practice as a physician in business. So I think that you need energy, enthusiasm, which is, and curiosity. Those are probably the things that are most, that will move you forward. And then as Denise said, I think it's most important to have really more than a mentor. The new word I think people are using is sponsor, but you need to have someone who really believes in you. Because if you have somebody who really believes in you, when you stumble and you fall, you're not taken aback. You're not taken backwards. It's like, you can do this, you can move forward. So I think that's really important. I think most of us don't know what we want to do. I always get nervous when I see kids picking a single sport or picking a single interest, because life goes up and down. You have experiences that change what you want to look at. So I always tell people, try to leave as many doors open, as many possibilities as possible as you move forward, because you don't really know where you're going to end up.
And segueing now into our topic, because we're still talking about talent and talent and our skills that we use to progress in our career track. And so we're going to turn to the topic of employing and appreciating global skills. And Denise, I know that you have extensive experience because you're with a global company. So can you talk about, would you talk about some of the key lessons that have been learned and challenges experienced with in working with teams really across the continent?
Sure. I concur with what Dow said earlier. I think there's two core things that I've learned. One is that you should not assume ever that you know the answer. So I will give you an anecdote where in the US, we're a US-based company, we were using an idiom, this person has my back. And so that's just something that we say, this person has my back. And I remember being on a couple calls with some folks from another country, and they said, what are you talking about? It made no sense to them. And we were just sort of operationalizing that term and using it. So it was interesting. So it's always important to just validate with the folks that you work with that what you're saying actually makes sense so you can communicate effectively. I think the other thing is just respect. One of the things that we all struggle with is time zones. So something so simple, but it says so much when you actually think about what time you are scheduling a meeting, or if you have someone scheduling your meetings, what time they're on calendar, so that you're not scheduling a 12 p.m. Pacific call for somebody in India who's 11 and a half hours ahead, right? They're not going to be able to participate. And so you're saying, I don't care enough about you and your life and what you're doing to think about what I'm doing. So I think that respect component of it is the most important thing I found, where we just forget. We just get very focused on our own lives, and we just forget that other people have completely different experiences.
And Dow, with your international experience, what are some of the lessons that you've learned? And again, I realize as a CEO, it's not like you do have teams, but you have people high up who are reporting to you. But what are some of the lessons or the challenges that you've experienced?
I think a challenge we're all living right now is how do you bridge the chasm given that you can't travel? And if I think about, I told you I lived in France for 6 years. My first trip to China was in 1986. I'm at the sunset of my career, so I don't have to worry about this too much longer. But when you think about the emotional, personal investment that over a 40-year career, I've probably been to China, for example, 80, 90, 100 times. How do you duplicate that in a pandemic and meet people and show them that you're human and that they're human and learn about them? And we've all got this passion and vision for our company, but how do we build some of those relationships? I think I don't know that we figured that out yet. And we kind of have to figure out how to duplicate the water cooler electronically here. We're piloting a few things. I'm doing, I backed off weekly. I was, in the first 2 or 3 months of the pandemic, I was doing a weekly all employee meeting, and then we've been doing weekly, it's kind of cool because I used to just do them locally, but I grab a dozen people for lunch once a week, all levels of the organization and bring them over. Now with the electronic tools improved so much, we can do that globally. And you've got an engineer from India with a service technician somewhere else. And anyway, we've got to figure out how to duplicate some of this so that we can develop the trust and loyalty and personal relationships that frankly make a professional life so rich.
Have you found that, I suppose, have you learned anything from others outside our country about dealing with the pandemic?
You know, the short version is they're all a lot better at it than we are. So, you know, they tend to have country cultures that are a lot more accepting of science, that are a lot more compliant. That's not always true, but a lot more, you know, we're a very independent, individualist country. And, you know, the good news is that brings kind of lots of freedoms to our country that others don't have. But having said that, you know, as we've seen in this latest surge, you know, we don't have the discipline to do what we need to do, and that's a problem. You know, so at our place, you know, we're being very, very careful and, you know, trying to adapt best practices. Our team in China is back in the facility. You know, our manufacturing workers and our kind of essential workers are, you know, to make sure we can keep a customer up and deliver the cancer saving products that we have, but the rest of us are working from home and probably will be for the rest of the year.
Mhm.
And we're just going to do, you know, we want to do everything we can to be part of the solution. And, you know, and that, you know, at least in the pandemic wise, you know, having a corporate responsibility to keep your employees safe is a big deal. You know, in our nearly 11,000 employees, we've had 15 infections. Every one of them has happened outside of our company. Fortunately, we haven't had any infections from those people to any other employee. We've got them early enough. And, you know, unfortunately, they've all been pretty light. And we have one active case right now. You know, so it's something that we monitor very closely.
So turning to what's going on a little more locally here, and you know, there's a lot of talent in the Bay Area. I know that you all know that, and I know Denise is in Sacramento, but you know, you deal with people in the Bay Area, and also that hiring and retention are two of the biggest challenges for Bay Area companies. So let me turn this to you, Chris, about the focus, not so much from the people who are at the company, which we've been talking about, and the impact on the pandemic, but what about the impact at your company for current hiring, and to the extent that there are already retention strategies as well?
So I come at this question from a startup perspective. And, you know, we have to project, we don't have the gravity of a large company, right? We have to come at it and give people confidence, not only do we have the right technology for the market we're going into, but we have staying power. And having staying power helps you hire and helps you retain, and giving people, you know, clear vision on why we're going to be a standard or de facto standard in a particular area, right, as opposed to somebody else. And that right now breaks down to, at least for startups, access to cash, new funding. You know, from a startup perspective, I don't know if anybody else is watching this, but most startups in the Valley, I would say not maybe most, but a large portion of startups in the Valley are going to run out of cash in September or December, which is going to really look like a bloodbath. So we were lucky. We had a big round of funding that was mostly strategic or corporate investor based before the pandemic. That gives us staying power. Also, having those corporate investors, and we have some of the best corporate investors in the world. We've got number one HUD automotive heads-up display company, Continental, big German company, Samsung, Sony, Panasonic, Mitsubishi, which a lot, Niantic, who does Pokemon Go. Lots and lots of corporate investors. And being able to lean on those corporate investors also, not only for resources, but for go-to-market, comes back to confidence for being able to project confidence to the employees. I will say, though, that in this particular area of technology, most of the large tech companies are moving in this area as well. And so we're competing for hiring with some of these big guys, Facebook, Apple, Google, and it's very difficult. The one thing that we have, I think that they don't have, is that people can come in here and own something and grow their scope very quickly, as opposed to being pigeonholed into a job. And that's very attractive to a lot of people who want to have more scope.
So this idea, it's such a challenge, with employees, because everyone is experiencing this pandemic differently. But I do want to stay on this topic of employee talent and really kind of move the focus a little bit, because we also have, besides the pandemic, obviously we also have another issue that's on everyone's mind. And one of our topics today is embracing diversity and equality. And I will say that even this was a topic that was going to be on March 14th, part of our panel, before we've had the subsequent event, because we know how important this is. I mean, this is such a critical area. So let me pose this to you, Liz. And in today's world, we all know that we can't afford to have partial equality or unequal diversity, and we really need to do both. So what does that look like from where you sit, and what's happening at Foundation Sutter Health Bay Area?
So, it has been a process over my career. As I said, when I started my work, I couldn't wear pants either. Was nylons and a skirt every day.
Right.
Probably 20 years ago, when I was sitting on the Sutter Health Board of Directors, they looked at our workforce and said we were 90% women and had 0 women in leadership. And really, at that time, began a process of really looking at that. Fast forward 5 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, our new CEO, Sarah Krevins, came, and she presented the board with the fact that she had several goals, and one of her major goals was diversity and health equality. So really looking at diversity is not just about diversity in business, that it's healthcare equality, and really moving that forward. If you look at us now, we are still overwhelmingly women, because it's a healthcare company. If you think about nurses and MAs, and it's a service industry, we're overwhelmingly women. But women have moved through our leadership structure. So we have both women in, manager, supervisor, director, and leadership positions. In fact, at our top leadership, of the top 22 leaders, 17 are women, which is really quite a change. We also have moved forward in diversity in the nationalities so the complexion of the company has also changed significantly. You talk about Sacramento. It's a Sacramento-based company, but we've really have become very much more diverse with, and actually we've done, it's interesting when you look at it in the Bay, we've done very well in the physician manpower, which is sort of what I'm over, done well with Blacks and Asians and South Asians and overwhelming women. We haven't done as well with Latinx. So we're really looking at that, just recruiting more physicians. So, because you want your employees to reflect the community that they serve.
And you have seen tremendous changes as a physician, also, because there were fewer women, and now, what would you say the percent of women are? Do you know in the middle?
Yeah, we're more like 52 or 53% women physicians at the medical group. So moving forward.
Yeah, that has been a big change. I remember what that was like 40 years ago, more than that, 45 years ago. So thank you for sharing on that. And I think Dow, you kind of hit upon this a little bit when you already spoke about differences in working with diverse cultures. But in terms of, are there any strategies that your company has, in place to be really conscious about that? And I'll say on what's going on in the United States as opposed to globally, because globally, just like Rotary is an international organization, so we have obviously people from all different nationalities a part of Rotary. But looking at this country and looking at your company, do you have strategies in place to deal with this issue of diversity and equality?
I think it's first and foremost, it's just essential that wherever you come from, when you work someplace, you got to be safe. You just have to. Sometimes it goes without saying, and we don't say it, but whatever your gender, your race, your religion, where you work, that just shouldn't be an issue. You should be accepted. You should be safe. And that's a big deal. And I think, I think we talk about a lot of cultural stuff and a lot of diversity and a lot of numbers. And, this really came home to me, frankly, in the last month or so, with everything that's going on. One thing that everybody in our company knows is the fear of cancer. My wife's a cancer survivor. I remember those tears and the pain and anguish we felt when Lynn was diagnosed with stage 3B breast cancer. Fortunately, she's doing well, but that kind of total uncertainty, that fear in our gut, was very real. Now, I run a lot. I've never felt fear because I have to go, because I go out for my 3 times a week jog or whatever. Anyway, so as Black Lives Matters started evolving, I wrote a piece to all of our employees about, hey, we got to be more sensitive. And, while we can identify with some of these fears of cancer, there are other fears that we don't know because, at least in my case, my white privilege and, and how do we be more sensitive? And it was interesting that one of the responses I got was from a Black woman who works for us. She's an outstanding employee, unbelievably dedicated, really professional. She's an applications trainer. She goes to institutions like Liz's and teaches their people how to use our equipment. One of the best we have. She talked about going to the Southeast, being assigned to a customer in the Southeast, and being followed from the hotel to the restaurant, back to the hotel. She's ex-military. She asked her boss, "Can I carry a gun?" Now you can decide whatever you want to decide about what's right and wrong here, but that's just fear that I've never had to deal with, that she had to deal with in her job. So I think as we talk about this, it's really the storytelling and helping people understand each other. Our performance metrics aren't going to change. We want a world without fear of cancer. Everybody has to contribute to that. And Liz talked about access to care. We have big initiatives in access to care, and in this country and in lots of other countries, to see if we can't solve some of the socioeconomic problems around cancer. We're seeing the disparity in our healthcare system. The pandemic is exposing a lot of those. And have a number of initiatives there. But I think, the number one thing is kind of, hey, there's all kinds of policy and metrics. You got to do that. But I think first and foremost, it's about the culture and how is everybody safe at your place.
Denise or Chris, do you want to have anything additional you would like to add to that from your perspectives? And we could, let me move on to, actually, this is a kind of a related question with diversity and equality, but a little bit more in the context of women. So let me ask Denise this question, and it may be maybe, you know, people always look at CEOs, they want to know some more information about what life is like for them. And how is your work-life balance? Well, let's first talk about work-life balance. And we hear so much about work-life balance and the impact that it can have on the success of an employee on a leadership track. Mm. So have you had in your, let me start with Denise on this. So Denise, how has the work-life balance impacted your success, or in your view, you know, the concept of success for employees? I mean, you deal with so many at Deloitte.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually really prefer the term work-life integration. And the reason I prefer it is because the idea of balance is somehow there's this magical formula that's going to make everything perfect. And you're going to find those things that are exactly right and on balance. I just don't think that's the case. I think that, though, I'll say for what I've seen and what I've experienced, what I've seen is people are most successful at integrating work and life when they are transparent. They are transparent with their leaders, their peers, and their teams about what's going on in their lives. They are clear, so they have boundaries. They make the requests that are critical to their personal success and being able to integrate their life and work. But they're also reasonable. So they understand, you know, if I'm a doctor in Liz's world, right? My life is a little bit different than if I am an HR manager, and what I can and can't do to be more flexible. And so I think that's what I've seen be successful. For myself, in terms of my personal well-being, I actually have been working from home for years. And so it's been funny to have folks approach me for advice about how to do this. But what's been different in the pandemic specifically is the ability to do everything else has been significantly kind of brought down. And so I just try to make an effort to stay connected to my family, my friends. I also think mental health is something we don't talk about enough. And it's so critical at this point in time, being aware of your own emotions, reaching out to other people. It's as simple as using the Breathe app on your Apple Watch, right? Having moments of mindfulness and just stopping to take a breath and recognizing how difficult this situation is for everyone. So I think kind of being able to do all of those things, you know, kind of contributes to your own both physical and mental well-being.
Well, beautifully said, as one who has always dealt with that, you know, obviously as an attorney, and especially when I was with a large law firm. So Liz, let me pose this question to you again, because you are, you know, being a professional woman as well as Denise is. The issue of balance.
So, like I have to say that I don't know that I balanced my work life well or integrated it as well as I could have. There's, and you know, you get better at, and I have to say that I probably wasn't as forgiving as some. You know, everybody thinks through these things in life of people who didn't spend time at work. I have been lucky. They say if you love your work, you never work. Right. And so being a physician, you know, it's the best thing. You're connecting with people, you're solving scientific problems, you're caring. I mean, it's really a wonderful thing, and I enjoyed every moment of it. However, I could not have done any of it. I never would have been successful in my career or had a life if I didn't have a husband who is amazing and has made room for me to be successful in my job. And our sort of belief is that we're a team, and the team can, you know, each team only has so much work that they can do. And so you have to sort of share. I think it's very hard to have dual careers where both are really very, very busy dual CEOs or whatever, because then you have to hire out some of the home stuff, which isn't always as good. So our children really benefited from my wonderful husband and having that help and balance.
Well, it sounds like a team is important, in whatever configuration that may be, and having the support. So thank you for that. Let me just, I want to just stay on this, this topic of empowering women in leadership. And we kind of touched on a little bit before about mentors, but I want to talk about networking and, and kind of the best way to go about it. I suppose we never know the opportunities that will come about from speaking, meeting people. So I'm going to toss this first over to Denise about starting out, for those who will be starting out or changing careers. Could you share your experiences with regard to networking, Denise, and then I'll ask Liz to address that.
Sure. I think there's a couple of things. One is I watch leaders that I admire and that most people respect and admire. So there's people that everybody knows are amazing leaders because we follow them. And you can learn a ton just by watching other leaders, learning what it is about them that kind of drives, what behaviors they're driving that people admire and respect. You start to emulate those things. And then for those leaders that I respect and admire and who have that reputation, I try to get to know them. I'm not going to get to know all of them, but I definitely try to identify a couple of folks who I really like. So as an example, the former CEO of my consulting practice was someone that I just admired tremendously. I was part of a leadership development program, and I raised my hand and I said, I would love if you were my sponsor. And he 100% was so excited that I had even asked him, because people were afraid to ask. And so that sort of thing, identifying those people who bring whatever that quality is to the table that we consider great leadership, that's how I start my networking journey. And then I also try to always think about networking as a two-way street. It's not just, hey, what can you do for me? But what can I do for you? What can I offer to you as a leader? What information or knowledge or experience do I bring to the table that can help you in what you're doing? And so when you have those sometimes awkward initial conversations, that's a good way to think about it. How can I help them get something out of this dialogue with me?
Is there, just a follow up to that, is there, people have different levels of comfort, in terms of networking. And, how does one go about branching out and stepping out of your comfort zone? And I'm going to circle back, Liz, I'm still going to circle back to you on the other question, but just as kind of a follow-up that came to mind.
I say start with one. I start with one person. I get messages from folks in my organization who just seen me on a video or seen an email from me or something, and they say, I'd love to spend 30 minutes with you. I've never said no to that. And I think most leaders, obviously some leaders are very busy, so you've got to balance it. But I've never said no to a 15-minute conversation with somebody who has something interesting to say. And so it's hard. I'm not a natural networker. It's not something I particularly enjoy the cold part of it, right? The cold calling or the cold discussion. But again, if you flip the switch for yourself to say, what can I bring to this conversation that will be of value to you? Then it becomes less about me taking something from you and more about me giving something back. And that to me is how I flip the switch in my brain to say, this is a good thing for both of us.
It's a very interesting way to look at it.
I try.
That's certainly for those who have a challenge with thinking about the other person. I think that's a very constructive way to see it, and a good bit of advice. Liz, let me just throw this back to you, which was the question about. You remember what the question was?
Leaders, I believe. Yes.
Networking, yeah, about networking.
So, where you are in your journey, then that is the type of leader you need to follow, or the type of interaction you need to have. I've always found that it's really important to, as doctors, we sort of think that, that's the whole thing, right? It's all about healthcare and we know the most. So I've really tried to be outside of healthcare, and to, when I did my MBA, I did it with a group of leaders who were many organizations. And I found that a friend of mine who ran a nuclear reactor and another one who ran an amusement park faced similar problems in a different way. And it really helped me look at my problem differently, or see that it wasn't just something that couldn't be solved because it was just so complex and so hard because it was medicine. So that's been really helpful for me to find leaders in different positions. Now that I've moved sort of up, I'm spending a lot of time, anybody who gets a role model in our organization that's under me, I go and talk to them and find out what made them a role model, employee, manager, supervisor, director, what, sort of how they look at things and what they do. And you learn a lot from the people that are doing the work. So that's been really a place that I've been looking and trying to see different views. And you also learn a lot about your organization when you go see them. So that's one of the things I've done.
Thank you. Well, I think we have just about, we could talk much longer, have a discussion like this, but this concludes the formal part of our panel discussion. And now it's time for some questions from our audience. And I am going to first start with one that came in, and this deals with intergenerational hiring, and really for workers that are, I suppose, in the older generation, 60 or above, we'll say.
Be careful.
I am being careful. So, it's good to get to that age now. You know that.
Absolutely.
So what is going on with hiring older workers, and if anyone would like to make some comments on that, and because again, I think the culture generally is, people get to a certain age and they're done, all they look forward to is retiring, but that is certainly not true for a lot of people who want to continue to work and have tremendous skills. So I'll just start. Dow, do you have some comments? And maybe Chris after that, if you have some comments.
I think it's a blast, frankly, and I think that's kind of the attitude you have to have about it. In 2017, we had 6,500 employees. We spun out a division that was 1,200-ish. So from 2017 to today, we've gone from 4,500 employees to almost 11,000. 2,000 of those are acquisition, but 4,000 of them are organic growth hires. And, and of course, when you look at, when I was CEO, I think when I was made CEO in 2012, I want to say the percent of millennials we had was like 3 or 4. and today it's 35. In 10 years, we've gone from 4% millennials to 35%. So some of it's, jump on the horse and enjoy the ride. I mean, you get to learn from everybody. It's a blast. It's fun. They're younger. They're more energetic. They raise the bar on you. It's great. Just keep your eyes open and go have a good time. There are some different nuances and values, but those are okay. Figure out how to harness them and make your organization better. Our organization is younger. It's more energetic. It's in terms of our vision of a world without the fear of cancer. These are people who have passion for our vision and want to make a big contribution. It's been a blast.
So Chris, from your perspective, there's a lot written, and I know you all have read about intergenerational and the different could be different values and all, but I suppose I'm thinking particularly, I mean, it is a challenge for the people who are older who want to stay in and trying to, you know, hire, give those people an opportunity to be part of a company without an assumption that because they're a certain age, you know, they're not current. So Chris, how does that come up for you at
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to answer that. So unlike some startups, you know, software startups tend to be millennial based, right? Like 25-year-old, 30-year-olds, whatever. You know, the company I'm running right now is a materials company. We have a proprietary photopolymer nanomaterial. It's an optics company. A lot of that experience resides in people who are older, people who are 40, 50, 60. And we tap into that big time. We have to. You know, for a company as small as we are, you know, it's as I said earlier, it's about getting subject matter experts. And if you're 25, the likelihood you're going to be a subject matter expert in holographic optics is zero. On the other hand, you know, there are people that have been doing that for decades. And I would hire a 65-year-old in a minute if they could get us to that next stage. So in our company, it really is all about just experience, who can take ownership, and who can move things forward.
All right, thank you. I'm going to turn to a question that came in from one of our attendees, and this is the question, and I'll ask, you know, whoever feels they want to address it, or I can call in somebody. But what changes were made to the pandemic at your company that were so positive that they will be here to stay afterwards? And I know, Chris, you want to start us with that?
I don't know whether this completely fits, but I think people realize you don't necessarily have to be in Silicon Valley anymore to work at a Silicon Valley company. I mean, if you can work from home and be really effective, maybe even more effective than you are at work, then you can go to a lower cost area, live in Boulder, you can live in, you know, wherever you want to live, and do the same thing. And I think that's going to have a ripple effect, actually. It's going to have a ripple effect on where people live. It's going to have a ripple effect on how people work and how people interact. So I think that's one of the things that's coming out of this.
And Denise, Liz, or Dow, anything additional or different in terms of a change? And I mean, obviously, we all know that you may not get on a plane like you used to before. We all know that. I know I find that in my work. But besides, you know, that type of thing, the travel, are there any other changes that you think kind of here to stay as part of how you're going to be doing business going forward? Liz, it sounds like you can.
Well, our business entirely changed, right? So we went from doing, you know, a video visit here and there to 100% video visits for several months while we were trying to, well, not 100%, but very close. While we were trying to gather PPE and other things so that we could fight the pandemic. Now we've gone back to seeing patients in the clinics, but we still are doing quite a number of our visits as video visits, 16 to 20%. And I think that patients want to come into the office because they're lonely and at home and they need that human touch. But when they get back to being busy and traveling, there's probably going to be more demand for video visits. And it's really changed almost everything we do. Things like behavioral health, tremendously positive on video visits. Patients really like that. in their home. Other things, patient education. We used to have 20 people come to a patient education class. Now we have 1,200. So really our ability to reach out to the community, to supply specialists in places where that are more out there. So it's entirely changed. Medicine really launched us forward. So I think that it's exciting. There's a real silver lining beyond that. And not only that, it's made our planet cleaner.
That's true. We're not all on the freeways, right? For
Right.
sure.
The only thing I would add that I've noticed, and I don't know if others have noticed this, but I feel like kindness has increased to a certain degree. I think people are more understanding of life and the way life gets in the way of work, in a way that maybe I think we were, but maybe it wasn't as visible before. There's just something to everybody being in something together. I see very senior executives whose kids run across the Zoom, in the middle of a meeting, and everybody understands. And I don't know if we all did before. So that's the one thing I think that will carry forward as well.
Well, it certainly relates to your point about the work balance, say integration. Now it's right there.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you. I have a question coming in, and this one is for Chris. And so I'm going to kind of read it to you, Chris, so you can absorb it. And this person is asking, said you touched on Jim Collins' hedgehog concept of a company focusing on one thing and doing that thing well, and that startups can focus on something new and innovate. Are there ways that an existing organization can, are there ways that, as to what an existing organization can do to innovate while still focusing on their, and maintaining their primary focus?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot of people that have written lots of books about that, right? And typically, in a larger organization, it requires separation of people into smaller groups, kind of creating a startup within a large group, so that they have mission, and they know what the mission is. When they take a shower in the morning, they know what they're doing, and they know what they're not doing, and they know how their bonus is going to be given to them. They're driven by not only personal goals, but monetary goals, whatever. And if you can create that, you can create a smaller culture within a larger company to innovate in a particular area. I think that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, thank you. Let's see. We have another question coming in here, and this is well, this is a question actually that was posed, and this is, what are the top 3 issues within your organization? And we have a few minutes. We only have a few minutes, so that's a big question. So maybe we could just kind of go around, and if you can just pretty briefly just kind of address that issue. So this is the question: what are the top 3 issues within your organization? And if you could kind of bullet point it, I think that's, people are interested in hearing that. So let me start with Dow, and we'll kind of move to Denise after that, and then Chris, and then Liz, and we want to do it so everybody can have something to say. So a minute would be good. Thank you.
I think I'll make it easy for us. It's growth and change. Yeah, we're, as I mentioned, we've seen almost a doubling of our business in 4 years. It's been tremendous. But with that's also come a lot of change. How do we maintain the growth, and how do we adapt to change, especially in a pandemic environment?
All right. Thank you. All right. I think I said Denise. Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually kind of hard to answer that for the whole organization because it's so huge. But I guess for me, the couple things I'm really focused on are the I would say the growth, development, health, and well-being of our staff.
Mhm.
And continuing to be able to hire, attract, retain, develop a diverse set of folks from across multiple backgrounds. I think that's for me some of my most critical things I'm focused on right now.
Thank you. Chris.
Sure. I think that one of the top things is safety, and giving people confidence that they can come to work and be safe, and that their families will be safe as well. Things that I focus on particularly right now are revenue, because everybody's slowed down. Everybody's really cash conscious and conservative with their cash. And that for a startup company especially also goes over into the funding side of things, making sure on a regular basis we have enough funds to continually run for somewhat an indefinite time period. And then just how do you push forward your partnerships, your collaborations? We have lots of strategic interactions with people around the world, and you got to keep those going. And I guess that comes back to revenue. So those are the things.
And Liz? Just unmute yourself. Thank you.
Am I unmuted now? Sorry.
Good.
Normally I'd say affordability, right? So how do we decrease our costs? Everybody complains about the cost of healthcare, but right now it's really, how are we going to manage serving people the healthcare that they need for diabetes, hypertension, obesity, psychiatric needs, and take care of the people with COVID separately and safely. So that's really and have enough people, right? So it was one thing when we sort of shut everything down and just took care of the people who had COVID. Now we've said, okay, we're doing this and this, and just having the personnel and what we need to do that. So for my friend Dick, that's what's keeping me up at night.
Well, we've come to the end of our time, and unfortunately couldn't get all the questions. We were able to get to some of them. And I want to thank Denise, Liz, Chris, and Dow for taking your time to join us, and for your sincerity, your support, and really sharing all your insights. It's really been invaluable. So thank you again, and let me now turn the program back to Rob.
Thank you, Sue. I'd also like to add my personal thanks to our panelists for sharing their time and their passions with us. So would you please join me in thanking our panelists with a round of applause? We do so appreciate each of you joining us today and sharing your leadership wisdom and innovative business experience with us. We've been getting a lot of very positive real-time feedback from our audience through the chat function, including thank you for putting together this panel of diverse, smart, and articulate business leaders. And this panel is absolutely awesome. I have to agree with that. So thank you all very much for sharing your valuable insights with us today. I'd also like to thank the San Francisco Business Times, who has graciously agreed to sponsor this Rotary Means Business event. The San Francisco Business Times is my personal go-to resource for the best information in Bay Area business news. We have James Beckner with us today from the San Francisco Business Times. James, would you like to say a few words? Is James out there? Well, he may not be, but we really do appreciate the San Francisco Business Times contribution to, they've advertised this event in their business journal, and as I say, it's a really excellent publication. So I'd also like to say thanks to Sue Roca, who has been acting as our moderator today, and to all of our other Rotary Means Business committee members who put this event together and provide ongoing support for all Rotary Means Business events throughout our 3-county Rotary District 5150. 16 Rotarians have volunteered today to facilitate each of the networking sessions we're about to go into, and we very much appreciate your help in jumping in to support our networking sessions today. If you would like to learn more about how Rotary can be an opportunity for you to enjoy fellowship, and local business leaders and give back to your community and the world, please contact Ron Jin, our district membership chair. You'll find Ron's contact information on your screen. We do hope that you found today's discussions inspiring. You'll be receiving a survey shortly, and we would appreciate your feedback so our Rotary Means Business Committee can use your input to improve our future event offerings. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our leader, who has assembled and leads our Rotary Means Business Committee, our Rotary Means Business Chair, Yue Chen. Yue?
Thank you, Robert, and thank you everyone for joining today's event. From the Rotary Club of Menlo Park, RMB District 5150 Fellowship Chair, my name is Yue Chen. Now it is time for networking portion of our event. You will be placed into one of our breakout rooms. Each room will be facilitated by an assigned Rotarian. And thank you to all our facilitators. During the session, each person will have an opportunity to share the following: your name and the current or previous occupation if you're retired. How are you using or would like to use your professional or business skill for communication, for community service? Now, while we get the breakout rooms started, please take a 3-minute break to get up and stretch and grab something to drink, then come back and enjoy the fellowship and the conversation. Thank you, everyone.